Yes, Zion Williamson is risky, but it's a risk the Pelicans need to take if they want to be relevant. It's Monday's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Monday, we are tipping off a week's worth of podcasts here. We're going to take a look at, is Zion Williamson risky? Yes, but not necessarily in the way that you think. We're going to cover it all in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. So I want to get into an article on the Houston Rockets from The Athletic, written by Kelly Iko and Sam Amick. Sam Amick, by the way, used to be like a regular guest on a lot of Locked On shows. I actually hosted Locked On NBA with him on and off for over the course of a season. So he is someone I very much trust, someone I know as well here. And so when he puts this reporting out there, I really do believe what he says. And I'm going to read you there we go, relevant quote from this article that was about what the Houston Rockets need to do next. And it was in the context of, could you go after Giannis, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Zion Williamson? Quote, as for Zion Williamson, who has spent the majority of his first 6 seasons falling short of expectations while experiencing health issues along the way, team sources said the Rockets see him as too risky, end quote. So it leads this question. Is Zion Williamson risky? Is being in the Zion Williamson business risky? I'm going to tell you right now, that answer is yes. Zion Williamson is risky, right? When you look at the past six years since Zion's been here in New Orleans, on why this team has not had the success that we would like over this period of time, right? 2 playoff appearances, losing in the first round, losing in the play-in tournament, not making the playoffs at all this year. Let me pull up the Pelicans record the past 6 years. Let's see here. The Pelicans are 209 and 263 during the Zion Williamson era. Okay, that's the past 6 seasons between May 18th, 2019 and May 18, 2025. So, okay, we're literally doing a 2-year period. That's their record here. 209 and 263. That is a winning percentage of 44.3%. The number one reason for that, more than David Griffin, more than Willie Green, more than ownership, more than anything else that's held them back, is Zion Williamson. He's played in about 45%, somewhere in that number, percent of his games available as a New Orleans Pelican. When you don't get someone to play more than 50% of their games, and even 50% if he was at 51, that's not a great number, right? When you don't have your best player playing in games, you're going to lose. No matter what, you're going to lose. You can design a foolproof offense. It doesn't matter. It's a player-driven league, not a system-driven league in the NBA. Otherwise, the Miami Heat would win the title every year, right? The Celtics wouldn't have lost this in the playoffs this year. More so than anything else, Zion Williamson is the reason the Pelicans haven't had success that they would want. Now, there are other factors in this. There's been atrocious injury history, luck, whatever you want to call it here. You know, they have squandered some assets. They've been fine. They've been, at least 50% or better when it comes to drafting. About every team is like that, right? Look, Zion and Brandon Ingram didn't really work. They held on to Ingram too long. Ingram was injured for a long time too. All of those things have held this team back in some capacity, but no more so than Zion Williamson. When he plays, the team wins. It's really as simple as that. That's going to be the case for any good team. If their star player doesn't play, you're going to have a problem. Come on. You don't need to come to Locked On Pelicans or any expert to get that kind of analysis. It really just does go without saying. So you see this and you go, yeah, like it's going to be a problem here. So that alone is going to make Zion Williamson risky. Like it's really that simple that if he doesn't play, and he might not play for another team because he doesn't have the track record here, teams are going to be scared to take a chance on him. They're going to be scared to go trade big assets for Zion Williamson. And this is going to dovetail into what I want to talk about in the next segment here, why this is a risk. So if Zion Williamson's risky, get out of the Zion Williamson business. But it's not that easy, right? And we're going to get into why this is a risk the Pelicans need to take. But to call Zion Williamson risky, 1,000%. 1,000%. Like, I don't think that's a hot take in any capacity. You need someone that plays. Now, when he plays, he is massively impactful. In the 30 games he played this year, the Pelicans were 11.3 points per 100 possessions net rating better. Their net rating was 11.3 better with him on the court than off the court. That's insane. His rookie year, +7. Next year, +7.2. Year after that, +7.9. Now we're skipping the year that he didn't play because there's no numbers. Last year it was down. It was -4.8. Last year was real weird. But he played, and that was the important thing. And the Pelicans were going to beat the Lakers. They were just going to get into the postseason, and that would have been that. And you might not have played the OKC Thunder in the first round, and that would have changed things too. The team is just flat out better, both offensively and defensively, when he is on the court. Every single year, they have been better even defensively with him on the court than off the court. Think about that for a second, right? That ties into what we'll just go into the next segment here, right? That's why this is a risk the Pelicans have to take, but there's some extenuating circumstances with it too. Not quite what you think. I'll explain. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investment, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. You know, when I started using Monarch Money, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I can budget smarter and save even more. And if you're looking for a big purchase or saving up for a home, a new car, whatever it might be, Monarch Money can help you achieve those goals. So download the app because you don't need multiple apps. And that's what I love about it. You can track your finances, spending, even plan long-term goals all in one place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. I see y'all every single day. And don't forget to make Locked On Saints your second listen today. Ross Jackson on vacation, still putting out shows, covering everything black and gold over there. The schedule, who the new QB is going to be, are their books fixed, all of that over at the Locked On Saints podcast. Make them your second listen today, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So yes, Zion Williamson is risky. It's as simple as that. So I say that. You agree, you disagree, that's fine. I think he's absolutely risky at this point in time with the track record that we've seen from him. So why stay in the Zion Williamson business, right? So a couple of things with this. This is a risk the Pelicans need to take this season. More on that in the next segment. This season. You won't make They're not planning on going through a rebuild, not with the 7th overall pick in this draft. You will not make the playoffs without Zion Williamson. I could end this segment here. You won't make the playoffs without Zion Williamson. Not in this Western Conference. We just went over kind of the impact on-off stats that he brings to the team. That's a really important thing. When they are their best version of themselves, we've seen them be first in the West. And now maybe this roster is a little bit worse than that team. We'll see. They're planning on making some big changes there. I can tell you that. You still aren't going to be first in the West without Zion. You're not going to be top 4 in the West without Zion, right? Whether he's healthy, then you're good. If he's not healthy or not on the team, you're not going to be good. It's really simple here. That's why they pay me the big bucks when it comes to it. You're just not going to be that good with Zion Williamson. So if that's the case, keep Zion and go forward, right? The other thing is this that I think is worth looking at too. They had Zion Williamson on stage at the NBA draft lottery. And anyone you ask, and Mark Stein reported it in his Substack, again, worth paying for. I've said that many times before. You don't do that necessarily if you're really planning on trading the guy. And I think people around the league that I've talked to from this have said, by doing that, the Pelicans are clearly trying to telegraph, we believe in Zion. We're going to get behind Zion. This is what we're going to do. Right. And that's what I've heard as well. So they're going to build around Zion Williamson. On stage is sending a message. But here's the thing with that, right? They might be sending that message out of necessity because it's the only message they have to send. If the Houston Rockets deem Zion Williamson risky, and he is, they're not the only ones. Other teams are going to as well. I don't necessarily think the market for Zion Williamson is hot per se. I don't think you're going to get what you want, right? Stephen A. Smith, not that you want to listen to him, said that on TV. You've had other anonymous GM sources, that stuff over this season, saying different on ESPN, The Athletic, and other places. Yeah, they're not going to get a ton for Zion Williamson. So if you're not going to get a ton for your star player, you just can't let him go for pennies. You may as well try and ride this out for one more season and see what happens, right? So maybe you have to put him on stage. You have to send this message that we're building around him and also telegraph that message to him. There was a lot of talk about the mandate to move Zion, all of those things, right? That got back to Zion. I guarantee you it did. There's no way it didn't. And if it got back to him, he's probably looking at the team being like, oh, Joe, they just fired David Griffin. He wanted to keep me. Joe Dumars is coming in and now he's got to trade me. Well, Gail Benson wants me traded because that's a mandate here. That's not great for your star player to feel that way if you just tried to trade him and can't. That you got to do some mending, some repair there. Easiest way to do that, hey, Zion, we believe in you. We're sending you to the lottery. We want you on stage. And you're like, oh, they really believe in me. They wouldn't put me up here if they're trying to trade me. The same reasons we all like, oh, yeah, they're not trading Zion if they're putting up here. Zion's going to think the same thing. Now, it might be the only move the Pelicans have to do. They might have wanted to trade him, couldn't find any sort of deal that was going to get it done because of the risk and all of that, whatever reasons it might be. And so, okay, well, we don't have a deal we like, so we're going to keep him. Now let's make it look like this was the plan all along. When Joe Dumars went up on his introductory press conference, said like, there's no mandate on head coach Willie Green, anything like that. Well, then, of course he was going to say that, even if it's not true. You say those things, you do those things. So Zion Williamson on stage is sending a message to him and to the rest of the league, but it might be the only message you have to send, and you might have to send that message in the first place. A couple other points with this, right? On trading Zion, not trading Zion, taking the risk with him. And it's risky. Relevance. I'm not worried about the team moving or anything like that. Like, zero concerned about that. From everyone I've talked to around Gail Benson, like, she's committed to keeping it here. Even when she passes, they're committed to keeping the team here. They are, from what I've taken away from this, not at all in any capacity worried about the team moving, which is good. Now, I don't exactly know what their internal books are. We know what the salary cap looks like, but we don't know the revenue they're bringing in, all of these things. Now, it should be that all NBA teams are very profitable at this point in time. But winning games and having people show up is an important thing. Drive more eyes on TV. Thus, you can charge more for ads on Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. More of that in a little bit. And then, not today, but another day. And selling more merchandise, more concessions, all of those things matter that are only going to put the team in a better financial position, which, while it's not my money, so I don't particularly care, I want the organization to be healthy in terms of cash flow and things like that. But also relevance. You trade Zion, you go through a rebuild, people ain't showing up. They're just not. We've seen it, right? They're not fun. They're not good. People, there's too many other things going on in New Orleans. It can be expensive to go to games. People are just going to put their money elsewhere. So you keep that in mind too, that if you want to be relevant right now, you have to do it with Zion Williamson, right? Like that's what it is. It's really as simple as that. So whether there was, original idea of we're going to hire Joe Dumars and make him trade Zion, and then they've started to change their mind as they've looked into it more. Yeah, I think that's definitely a feasible way to read this and look at all of this, right? I think they can easily change their mind and be like, oh, we didn't get Cooper Flagg. We didn't get Dylan Harper. We're not even going to get Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey might fall to 7. Then we need to keep Zion and just kind of run it back for a year. More on that in a minute. You don't want to do this for more than a year, in my opinion. You can go forward if it gets fixed next year. So you need to keep Zion Williamson. It's just you want to be relevant. It's going to require Zion. You want to win. It's going to require Zion Williamson, right? All of those things. You're not getting a good return if you were to trade Zion, and you would just it'd be a bad trade, right? Those 3 reasons. Zion Williamson might be risky, but that's a risk that you have to take if that's the situation around Zion Williamson. We can say, again, they're sending a message by him being on the stage, but their hand might have been forced to send that sort of message due to the other circumstances around the team and those sorts of things. So keep that in mind, that even if they have Zion this year, it doesn't mean that they are fully committed to him in the future. This could be, let's see if we can get his trade value up. Let's see if a team around the trade deadline next year is a little bit desperate and maybe we can move him then, whatever it might be. Because in my opinion, you only get one more season to try and make this work. Max. If it doesn't work, you need bigger changes than the ones that they're already going to make this offseason. So let's look at that. Future timeline. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Big Board show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Pelicans have a record of 209 and 263 during the Zion Williamson era. It's not great. It's just, frankly, not great during this time. Not at all what you want to see. And as I said in the beginning, it's mainly due to Zion Williamson just not being available, not playing the type of games that you want. This past season, he played 853 minutes. He has eclipsed 1,000 minutes just twice in the 5 seasons that he has played. Now, he's gotten over 2,000 minutes in those seasons, and he's come close at other times, but that's not a great track record whatsoever when it comes to it. 2,200 minutes is probably like the bare minimum that you would like him playing. So that's what's holding the team back more than anything else. Other teams see that. Zion Williamson then gets determined risky. That all makes perfect sense to me, and frankly, I agree with it. Now, we just went over why the Pelicans need to take that risk right now, at least for this coming season, just because of the situation they find themselves in. Whether they actually believe in Zion Williamson or not is completely irrelevant. You just need to do this to get the best trade possible to maximize your assets and if you want to remain relevant. And you're not going to remain relevant without Zion Williamson. Not with the 7th pick. Sorry. 1 or 2, yeah, different story. But now, no. So the Pelicans it seems like, are going to bring Zion Williamson back for next season. This coming season. Here's the thing. Maybe you hate that. Maybe you love that. You only get 1 more year to make this work. Joe Dumars has got to kind of strike gold, hit it right at the beginning of his tenure. If you go through this next season and Zion Williamson plays under 40 games again, you can't do this anymore. Right? Like, this is like you're talking to someone who just needs to leave a bad relationship. I'm not even going to say toxic, but a bad relationship, and they just won't do it. And eventually you just get sick and frustrated of your friend while trying to give him grace and all that and, be sympathetic. But eventually it's like enough is enough when it comes to it. We've all been there with friends and being like, all right, I got to shoot you straight. I got to give you some hard truths here. You got to dump this person. This isn't working. You're miserable. You're not happy. It's making your life worse. That's what this is looking like. And again, we got new people involved. The two parties are seeing their individual therapists and all of that now. Like, we're going to get better. We're going to make this work. Cool. But if you do all of those things and it still doesn't get better, this isn't the best analogy, but you kind of get it, then it's time to part ways. However you decide to do that, you just need to do it. Simple as that. You get New Orleans Pelicans, in my opinion, get 1 more season of Zion Williamson. If he doesn't play 70 plus games and you better, so here's the criteria. He plays 70 plus games and you make the playoffs. Plus, it can be through the play-in tournament. It can ideally be as a top 6 seed. That might be a bit of a tough job, but it's something like that. You do that. And you can keep Zion Williamson after next season. So that would then be that's 25, 26 coming up, 26, 27 season. But other than that, it's time to move on because it's not working and it hasn't worked and you just haven't been able to put it together, mainly due to Zion, but mainly due to, also due to other things too. But it's time to just take a break. Maybe his contract won't be fully guaranteed at that point, so you can just waive him. Cool. Zion, best of luck. Go do your thing. You can try and trade him for whatever you can get at that point. At that point, I don't care if it's a bad trade. Do a bad trade, don't get anything in return for him, and just go through a rebuild, which I have a hard time believing this team would actually try and do, even if that's maybe the smartest long-term thing for them to do, especially with the upcoming draft being pretty good. The Boozer twins in there and others. But you get 1 more year of this. So when I say it's a risk the Pelicans have to take, it's for this coming season only. I'm not talking about the future from that. I'd long said, right, like I would go down with the Zion ship trying to build around him. Well, he's under contract for a couple more seasons, but David Griffin went down with the Zion Williamson ship, right? And so at a certain point when it's doing that, you got to make some changes. And it's going to have to eventually be Zion Williamson unless this year is good. And look, maybe he plays 70 plus games, the team makes the playoffs, and he plays in the playoffs too. Is crucially important to that as well. Maybe that happens. Then you run it back. You're on a 1-year basis, trial basis going forward, in my opinion, because it is risky. It's far more likely he plays 40 or fewer games and this team is terrible next year. It's why you can't really trade, in my opinion, unless it's for Dylan Harper or Cooper Flagg, like your first round pick next year, and you have 1 first round pick next year that's either yours or the Bucks, whichever one's the better pick. You can't trade that because you need that pick in case it all goes belly up this year, and there's a high likelihood that it will. We've seen that, right? Like, there's a high likelihood that this coming season is not going to be great for New Orleans because Zion Williamson is risky. And that's why no other teams are trying to trade for him right now. It makes perfect sense. All of this. So the team gets 1 more year of it. You can't keep putting fans through this. While a lot of people believe in Zion, want you to keep Zion, yeah, they're still fed up with the current state of it. And the reason, people who are like, keep Zion and I hate how the team is doing. it's the hot dog meme guy. Like, we're all trying to find the guy that did this. It's really Zion, right? So if you're sick of where it is, but you want to keep Zion, like, there is inherently some hypocrisy, contradictory statements when it comes to that. Now, there are other reasons why they haven't succeeded too, but in my opinion, it starts with Zion, right? We always say everything starts with Zion. I'm not giving him a pass on this. So they get one more year of this, in my opinion, then they need to make a bigger change. That's at that point a directional shift of what you're doing with your franchise. And I think that's going to be an important thing in the, potentially in the nearish future for New Orleans. So yeah, Zion Williamson is risky, but that is a risk the team needs to take this season, but isn't a risk that they need to take much longer than that on a longer term scale. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. We will do a live show at some point this week. I'm not sure what day yet. I'll take a look at the schedule here and we'll kind of figure that out Monday morning or so. But I'm looking forward to talking draft. We'll get some guests coming on in the near future too that I've been talking to. So that's been fun. We got a lot more coming here. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, and I'll be back with y'all tomorrow.